Hello and welcome to the world as we see it. Welcome back if you visited us before, and welcome to if this is your first visit to our little transmission, which we have every couple of weeks. My name is Lloyd Hobart Mitchell, and I am an ordinand with the St. George's congregation here in Pattaya in Thailand. My formation, which is the word used when a person is training to be a priest, is overseen by Father David Price. And it's Father David who you can hear playing the organ whenever we're coming into this or leaving. So I'm very lucky to benefit from his wealth of knowledge and experience within the church. Um, Now, as well as having Father David, who's the current chaplain of St George's, I also benefit from Father Tom McCusker. And Father Tom, I normally try to meet with on a Tuesday in the afternoon. Unfortunately, the last couple of weeks has been um, appalling, actually, because every time I plan to see him, I'm offered more paid work, and so needs must sometimes, and that's meant that I haven't really seen him or spoken to him for a few weeks now, which is very difficult. Um, I'm, you know, it's difficult because I really want to. At the same time, money's pretty tight, and there's just the reality of living. So I never really know what the right thing is to do. But um, anyway, we'll get back on track soon enough, I'm sure, and I can start meeting with Father Tom again. Now, today we have our Saturday agenda, and on Saturdays, what we do is we go through the church times, and we also spend so when we're going through the church times, we look at the headlines, and we also take some time to go through the order of service, which it has been put online for the Eucharist service tomorrow. So that's the plan for today. Um, hopefully that's engaging enough for you. Hopefully, I might say some things which, uh, you know, I often say this, which resonate with you, right? Which cause a reaction. And if that's the case, it would be very good if you would either type a comment in Facebook or here on Twitch. So, I look forward to engaging with you. I look forward to hearing what you have to say in reaction to what we have a look at. Now, what I'm going to do momentarily is share my screen and share with you the church times. So let's do that. Let's see what's in the news this week. You can see church times is there, and we've got a few things going on. The first one, it says bishops and their ministry full document. Um, Now, this is a very interesting thing because it's a document which was um, I don't want to say it was secret, but it was confidential. It was a confidential briefing document, and somehow the Church Times got hold of it. Now, I'm always a little bit skeptical when there is a leak from government or a leak from the church, and um, there was a news story produced by uh, the Church Times only the other day. This was on the 8th of February, 4 days ago, and it was all about this document which they had sight of, um, and it's all a bit worrying, really. So I think we will spend some time on this because there's not a huge amount of other news, and I think this is very important, actually. So it says a reduction in the number of dioceses and reforms to the shape of episcopal ministry. We are part of the significant change to which God is calling the Church of England. a paper by the Archbishop of Canterbury and York and the Bishop of London suggests. In the confidential paper presented to the College of Bishops in September and seen by the Church Times this week, the three authors write of their conviction that God is calling us to embrace significant change. This will entail being prepared to surrender much that we have held dear, but which we now believe may well be hindering our mission. So, what does that mean? What are we talking about here? And I do fear that what they're talking about is the church estate. We've seen the church estate shrinking quite seriously over the last 20 years. I know we've spoken about that a few times, and I'm a member of a few groups on Facebook where they detail churches being sold or demolished, but certainly being lost to their primary function. And I almost think it's a dreadful waste. But here we're being told that anything which holds us back, we're going to just dispense with. We believe that there will need to be significant changes in how dioceses are structured, the number and nature of them, as well as serious consideration. Please forgive me, I don't know where that came from. Little sneeze, hopefully I haven't got a cold. The number of nature of them, as well as serious consideration being given to the behaviours and ways of workings of bishops as we move beyond the events of 2020 and 2021. Entitled A Consultation Document, Bishops and Their Ministry Fit for a New Context, the paper draws on a listening exercise conducted by a task group commissioned by the Archbishops and the Bishop of London. This task group comprised the Vice Chair of the Anglican Consultative Council, Maggie Swinson, the Bishop of Ely, the Right Reverend Stephen Conway, and the Chair of the Mission and Public Affairs Council, Michael Shared. The exercise entailed 80 one-hour interviews with key stakeholders, including all 42 diocesan bishops. Taking this into account, the paper sets out the initial conclusions of Archbishops Welby and Cotterill and Bishop Mullally, giving options for change. In making the case for change, they list a number of areas of concern. The fact that the current deployment of bishops and diocesan structures do not reflect current population patterns, and that many suffragan bishops do not have specific responsibility for leading mission in a territorial area. Concerns about the costs of diocesan offices, and the fact that data on giving as a percentage of income strongly suggests that the majority of dioceses are not capable of sustaining themselves. It's very interesting, right? Now, does that mean that the hierarchy is top heavy? I'm not sure. Does it mean that, if they're going to shrink the number of dioceses, are they going to be shrinking the number of priests? Does that mean they're going to be shrinking the number of churches? I'm not sure. But it's very interesting, isn't it? The paper speaks of a continued commitment to bishops rooted in place. The norm should be that bishops have responsibility for leading mission in a particular area. It envisages significant reform to the role of suffragans to clarify the post holders' roles and responsibility with a clear focus on territorial focus, noting that most of the Church's 52 suffragan bishops do not have direct oversight for a distinct area, unlike the 20 area bishops. It warns we should not perpetuate suffragan bishops who are just spare parts in the system. Now, That to me makes sense. They need, because of the realities of this pandemic, which has obviously hit the church very hard, they do need to cut their cloth. But I think they need to cut their cloth in a way which bolsters the front line. I think anything that reduces the number of people at the front line, not just people but territories as well, is a bad thing. That's my opinion. But after stating that each major population centre should have an oversight leader with responsibility for the development of the church's mission in that area, it questions whether such leaders must be bishops, citing archdeacons or area deans as possible alternatives. Now, question, is that because area deans and archdeacons are just cheaper? Is that because area deans and archdeacons have proved to be more efficient? I'm not sure. The paper also explores the potential to go beyond the geographical model of episcopacy. It cites a recent review of the See of Islington by the Diocese Commission, which found that such posts help us avoid the gravitational pull towards business as usual and to embrace a new paradigm and culture. The See was revived after almost a century in 2015 when Dr. Rick Thorpe was given a non-territorial bishopric dedicated to church planting. So this sounds like a good thing, right? This sounds like a very good idea, where you have a bishop whose sole purpose is to create new churches in communities maybe where there are none. The paper contends that the style of missionary bishop is both an historic one in England and contemporary one in other parts of the globe. Yet no clear funding mechanism appears to exist within the Church's current model, which requires bishops to operate as suffragans within a see and therefore imposes a funding burden on the diocese. We believe that if one of the core purposes of the episcopacy is to lead and equip the Church for mission, it seems clear that the model of non-territorial missionary bishops should be both endorsed and enabled, and in all probability expanded. Another recommendation appears to run counter to this, that all bishops appointed to ensure provision for particular constituencies on the basis of theological conviction, provisional episcopal visitors, should have episcopal roles in one diocese, as well as network responsibilities. The rationale given is that this would mean having a larger overall number of such colleagues. It would also offer a much more equal access to the experience that would enable them to be considered to be diocesan bishops. The paper notes the importance of listening to the lived experience of bishops, in particular female diocesan bishops, as part of this process going forward. When it comes to the 26 Lords Spiritual, the paper suggests that reforms of the House of Lords is inevitable at some stage, concluding the Church should seek to shape at least the elements of reform that will impinge on the Lords Spiritual from within before they are imposed. In practice, we believe this implies both a reduction in number of Lords Spiritual and the attachment of those roles to specific sees rather than by rotational allocation. Increasing the number of non-territorial bishops could open up the opportunity to develop non-diocesan episcopal roles to speak into particular issues, it suggests. This might be particularly appropriate for bishops who no longer feel called to serve as diocesans, or who have a very particular passion and knowledge on a particular subject. These roles could also be fixed term. Examples might have been the appointment of a Brexit bishop or a COVID bishop. This would differ from the present framework of lead bishops, whereby a bishop becomes the policy lead and public spokesperson on a specific topic, such as prisons or housing. The authors write of wanting actively to welcome episcopal ministry being offered in new ways. House for duty or self-supporting bishops are mentioned. When it comes to term lengths, further consideration is being given to the possibility of setting a 7-year limit on service as a diocesan bishop, and to the possibility of appointing bishops for a fixed term of 5 years to inhabit a specific development role. The shape of episcopal ministry is one half of the paper. The other is the diocesan structure. A reduction in the number of dioceses is highly likely, it suggests, given everything else that is happening. We will be moving to having fewer dioceses over time. The authors note with concern that 27 of the 42 dioceses are operating on deficit budgets. Against a backdrop of grassroots concern about reductions in stipendiary posts and the critique of expenditure on central support functions, the paper suggests that the latter should be kept as lean as possible to allow as much resource as possible to be focused on frontline mission and ministry. All three of the options for reform set out are aimed at allowing resources to be focused on frontline staff, parish clergy and chaplains, and providing the benefit of reducing the managerial time demands on bishops, in turn freeing them for more missional ministry. But fewer dioceses should not necessarily mean fewer bishops, the paper cautions. Rather, perhaps bishops with more localized apostolic and pastoral oversight. This might in turn require a focus on a reduction in the current differentials of stipend, housing, and public status. The first of the three options is a program of diocesan combinations where 2 or 3 dioceses come together, primarily on the basis of geography adjacency. It is mentioned that the dioceses of Rochester and Canterbury are already well advanced in conversation about closer working together, which might lead to a union of 2 of the most ancient English dioceses. There are plans to ask the Diocese Commission to look closely at the east of England, the southwest and the northeast. In November, a written response to a General Synod question confirmed that the Diocese Commission had received no instruction from the archbishops or diocesan bishops to start developing schemes. Currently, no proposals for boundary reorganisation or for closer diocesan administrative working together have been received from dioceses. The second, more radical option set out in the paper is the creation of much larger dioceses on a regional level, with dioceses aligned more closely with civic and local authority structures. The third is the informal or semi-formal pooling of back office functions. It makes reference to a huge amount of duplication within a number of central diocesan functions. But it cautions that whilst there has been some experimentation with pooled resources, these experiments have not been regarded as universally successful, and some have been abandoned. It is now 11 years since the scheme that led to the creation of the Diocese of Leeds was launched, entailing a major diocesan reorganisation in Yorkshire. Although some evaluation of the process has been undertaken, the Bishop of Leeds, the Right Reverend Nick Baines, has been critical of the failure of the Church to learn lessons from it. A paper published last year by then Secretary to the Diocese Commission, Jonathan Neal Smith, reported that both staff numbers and staff salary costs had increased between 2015 and 2020, while noting that savings made might have been counterbalanced by additional expenditure in areas such as safeguarding. A reduction in attendance and giving more severe than the national average was also reported, alongside a warning about the use of a crude yardstick over a relatively short period of time. Mr. Neil Smith observed that the experience of the last few years suggests that while there may be some scope for greater cross-border cooperation between dioceses, this area is unlikely to deliver huge benefits. If this had been the case, there would have been more energy behind this agenda. So, this is very interesting, isn't it? I mean, this comes at a time when we've read week after week about this plan for a leaner Church of England, where we're talking about the creation of 10,000 home churches, while some other churches in various parishes are facing closure. So it's very, very interesting. It's very, very interesting how this news has been leaked. And I don't think it has been leaked. I think it's an organised media strategy. I'm very skeptical. Sorry. I'm very skeptical whenever I read about something like that. And I can't help but think that, this may well be considered a consultation. But it seems to me that plans are underway. Right? This is really, it's helping people come to terms with change before change is brought to bear. That's my opinion. Now, let's have a look at some other headlines. Now, full steam ahead for cleaner church boilers. Okay, that's good for the world. Archbishop quizzed about the selection of appointment secretary. We remember this chap being appointed not too long ago. Stephen Knott, I think his name is. Let's have a look. The Archbishop began to face persistent challenges during the General Synod questions on Tuesday about the appointment process for the new Archbishop Secretary for Appointment, Stephen Knott. Mr. Knott's appointment was announced last month, 9 weeks after the announcement that his predecessor, Caroline Boddington, was stepping down. He's been part of Lambeth Palace staff team since 2013, filling several positions, including those of assistant and then deputy chief of staff from 2016. In a written reply to a question about the process, the Archbishop said that Mr. Knott's recruitment was in line with current best practice for all vacant or significantly reshaped roles within the National Church institutions during this change. The post was advertised internally across the National Church Institutions Network and open to all employees. Full details, including job descriptions, were publicly available. A number of experienced and potentially appropriate NCI staff applied, and all who applied were invited to interview. The independent interview panel of 5 lay members and 1 retired bishop reflected that other stakeholders in the process within the church structures and government. Archbishop Welby confirmed that to the extent that it is proper to do so, given obligations under GDPR and personal pastoral confidentiality, documents concerning the appointment, including the job description, would be made available to synod members. The Archbishop was asked by the Reverend Dr. Tom Woolford Blackburn, what particular consideration was given to ensure that global majority heritage candidates applied, and that the way the post was filled complied with equal opportunity legislation? Oh, so I wonder what they're getting at. What do they mean when they're asking that question? Interesting. The Archbishop referred to an NCI program aimed at improving diversity at all levels of the workforce and said that around 15% of the NCI workforce was from a GMH background. He also referred to the fact that significant numbers of redundancies were being made. There is always a tension between seeking to minimize the number of people who may lose a job, which would incline you toward internal advert, and seeking to get the greatest possible diversity. So, interesting. We will follow that story. I think that's very interesting. So we'll come back to that another day. What's next? What next? We've got Benedict XVI's apology met with anger and disappointment in Germany. I mean, I'm not sure there's very much he can do to satisfy all those people who are very upset. This is the former Pope, and they're saying that there was some legal evidence in whatever the court or the investigation found that he would have known about what was going on, about the sexual abuse in the Archdiocese of Munich and Freising during his time there, and he said, once again, I can only express to all the victims of sexual abuse my profound shame, my deep sorrow, and my heartfelt request for forgiveness. So, he says, each individual case of sexual abuse is appalling and irreparable. The victims of sexual abuse have my deepest sympathy, and I feel great sorrow for each individual case. I'm not sure, beyond doing what he's done, I'm not sure what he could have done. Now, in Germany, what they're saying is that the victims' organisations have said that he had still not taken direct responsibility for abuses there. And I think this is very interesting because this week, I don't know if you've read about it, but somewhere in America, there's a mother of a child who was brutally killed by her boyfriend while she was at work. And she's been sent to prison for, I think she's been sent to prison for, well, she was sent to prison for 20 odd years, but now that's been reduced for about 16 months because she didn't prevent harm. So whilst in one part of the world, someone's sent to prison because they went to work and during that time their boyfriend killed their son, the former Pope, who was in a position of authority, is maybe rightly so being lambasted because he didn't prevent the continued sexual abuse under his watch. I always remember, I can't remember which president it was, but there was a president in America who had a thing on his desk which says the buck stops here. And it's true, he was the boss in that particular area. He was in a position to stop the abuse, which he knew about, and he didn't. So, yeah, maybe he does need to take a bit more personal responsibility. I also think it would be good for the Vatican if he did take personal responsibility for it, because he's no longer the Pope, he's the former Pope, right? So, as far as the public perception is concerned, he would be doing the right thing. The victims' organisations no doubt would be, then able to press on for compensation, which no doubt they would receive. And, without sounding flippant, because I don't want to sound flippant about something which is very important. But the whole thing could literally be put to bed. It could just be stopped then, couldn't it? Instead, because he hasn't taken direct responsibility, personal responsibility, it's going to drag on, isn't it? This non-stop. So, very interesting. Now, congregations have been invited to celebrate Platinum Jubilee with acts of service. That's a good idea. Anything that gets folk out into the community, planting trees or doing, anything, that's all good. We've got Faith Matters to LGBT plus young people. I don't think we've got anything else really. I might like to read that Dickens article there. About Dickens, that would be good. All for one and one for all. So I might end up coming back and reading that. But I don't think there's anything more that I would like to read. Right, let's go. We'll go straight over, if we can, to the St. George's website. And on the St. George's website, we are going to look at the order of service for tomorrow's, here we are, forthcoming services. So tomorrow is the 6th Sunday after Epiphany, 13th of February 2022. And we're going to run through the order of service, which you can see here. And there's some instructions at the very top, which hopefully you can see. And these instructions are there to help you if you are at home, if you are joining us online, and if you are not sure how our order of service works, then you can follow these instructions. You can click to expand or minimize the order of service below. You are requested to join in whenever the text is green or when instructed by Father David. Where the little purple cross is shown, all are encouraged to make the cross sign, and where the closed fist is shown, all are encouraged to strike their breast with the closed hand following the actions of Father David. Where the open-handed little yellow palm is shown, all are encouraged to tap their breast with an open hand following the actions of Father David. So you can see, you just click on these little plus signs and the expanding accordion opens up before you, and got a number of bits and pieces in there, and you can see the whole liturgy opens up and is there. I mean, I've shown you this a few times, so I know that for a lot of you this won't be new, but for some of you it might be. At the bottom of every hymn, it always says, scroll to the bottom of the page for the media player where you can hear the music and practice your singing. And that's down here. So you can see that there's the introductory music, choral song Wesley, Morning Has Broken, Happy Are They That Love God, Light Abodes, Celestial Salem. So that is the order of service for tomorrow. We start the service at 3 p.m. promptly, Bangkok, Jakarta time. So I think that's about 8 a.m. in the UK. If you are in the US and you're, working on, I really can't fathom what time it would be in the US. I'm sorry to say, but I'm pretty sure it would be about 3 o'clock in the morning for some, and just a bit earlier for others. So in the US, it's particularly unhelpful. If you're in Australia, at the Perth side, it's the same sort of time as us, so 3 p.m.-ish, I think. Of course, if you're on the other side, then it's going to be a little bit later for you. So do join us. Of course, you can join us on Facebook or Twitch. We'll be streaming to both. We also stream to YouTube, but I know that doesn't really get many views. But nevertheless, we are there, right? So I think it's quite good to recognise that we are there. And you are all very, very welcome, right? Hopefully, we will see you there. Now, just so you know, because it does put it all into context and why we always talk about this, because very often we might have, 6 or 7 people attending the chapel and receiving communion. And at the same time, what we might find is on that Sunday, we might be having 50 or 60 people watching the service across the afternoon. Um, and so that tells us that there is a need to do this. There is a need for the online service because of the number of people who do watch it, and we do get some engagement on our social media accounts. So I really do urge you to get involved online, to join in, and hopefully, you'll benefit, right? Now, let's move on from the order of service. What I think we will do now is move to our prayer time. So we normally do say the Lord's Prayer, followed by the collect provided by the Church of England. So let us. We'll do that. I think we will proceed to the Lord's Prayer. Let us pray with confidence to the Father, as our Saviour has taught us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, for ever and ever. Amen. Lord of the host of heavens, our salvation and our strength, without you we are lost. Guard us from all that harms or hurts, and raise us when we fall. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Now, thank you so much for being with me. Thank you so much for keeping me company. I do hope you will join us tomorrow. I know that tomorrow's service is an important one for lots of different reasons. So I would look forward to seeing you there. And if we don't see you at the service, if we don't know that you are present, then do come back to us here, either on Facebook or on Twitch on Tuesday. And on Tuesday we'll be going over Father David Price's homily, the one that he gives tomorrow, and I'll be making some commentary about that. So, without further ado, I would like to say, with prayers and best wishes, bye-bye for now.